Welcome to the 28th episode of Two Tankers and a Cat. We're your hosts. I'm Charlie.
And this is Russell.
So, first announcement, I got a little surprise for you, Russ. What makes this episode special?
I'll tell you what, it is a special one.
You got it. It's a 1-year anniversary. We have been doing this for a year now.
A whole year.
Yeah. We did our 25th episode a while back. And now we've reached the milestone. We started this back in October.
Yeah.
And actually, beginning of October, we actually started talking about it and getting everything together.
2018.
And I went back and listened to our first episode. And you remember what it was? The Mark V.
Mark V.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That seems like forever ago.
Yeah. Very, very first tank that the Americans had.
Yeah, first heavy tank.
Yeah. We're also going to talk today about another American tank. And I'll be honest, this whole line of tanks was so bad. The United States couldn't give these away. But we'll get into the story. What is today's episode? It's on the Marmon?
The Marmon Herrington combat light tanks and tankettes.
Yeah, and then we're also going to talk about the MTLS-1G14. It's the double-barreled tank that they had.
Oh, man.
They tried to classify it as, kind of like a medium tank, and I'm like, it wasn't a medium tank.
Pushing a medium.
But, we're going to put pictures on Facebook like we normally do, and you got to see it. It's actually a double-barrel.
Double-barrel tank.
Double-barreled 37s, I think.
Man.
And had like 8 machine guns on it.
Yeah.
So what was it? Why did we go make machine guns all over tanks?
I don't know. Good
question. We did that with the Lee and the M2 and some other stuff. We did. Okay, we talked about the anniversary. Let's do some shout outs. Definitely want to give Andy Crow a shout out for being a Patreon subscriber.
Yes. Thank you, Andy. And Warren Ben still with us.
And Christy McCarty's started last month.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it.
Yes, we do.
That's our first female.
First female.
Nice.
Patron, yeah.
We got Kevin Shin and then Kyle Montgomery. And then what was the other guy's name? ODS
Thero.
ODS Thero.
Yeah.
I always kill his name.
Oh, I know.
And everybody's favorite, Rick Schmidt.
Yep.
He tunes in every time I stream, and we have a new game.
Uh-oh.
You're going to have to tune in. And
Drink every time you get killed? Is that what the game is?
Every time I get hit by artillery, and we've been doing this for a little while.
Yeah.
And I've got probably 30 people that, are constant followers, and then I get, people all the time.
Uh-huh.
Actually, I got up to 9,000 views on one of my videos for streaming. Nice. I know you guys aren't probably interested in, digital tanks, but, basically that's
if for nothing else, get on there and look for the history aspect of the game. I mean, these are historically pretty darn accurate tanks in this game.
And if you ever want to watch my stream, it's great because I get shot a lot.
He does. I guarantee you he gets shot up.
But the game is, every time I get hit by artillery, the guy's got a drink.
Oh, no.
Okay, after an hour and 15 minutes, everybody was hammered.
Oh,
everybody was just hammered.
Oh, man.
So if you want a good excuse to drink and come play drinking games with me, yeah.
And if you're playing against Charlie in game, make sure you're hitting the crap out of him with your arties.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say. After an hour and a half, they're only have to take it one drink, and they're hammered. Now, there is a second part of the game, but, you have to tune in for that.
Yeah.
That's when I kill artillery. But,
do you want to tell them where they can find you streaming?
You know what? I'll just put it on Facebook.
Okay. We'll just
put it on
Facebook for that.
Yeah. So
easier.
But, it is a ton of fun.
Yeah.
And I try to be Facebook friendly now because I don't want to end up in Facebook jail.
I know. Already had your experience with that once. So.
Okay, yeah. Facebook jail.
Yeah.
Well, blankety blank, blank, blank. But, okay, Russ, let's get started. Tell us about this. I'm killing this name. Typical Charlie. How do you say it?
The Marmon Herrington.
Thank you. Combat tank, light tank, and tankettes. So, Russ, tell us about it.
Yeah, the Marmon Herrington Combat Tank Light Series were a series of American light tanks and tankettes that were produced for the export market at the start of the Second World War.
Okay. Give us some design and development on it.
In the mid-1930s, the U.S. Marines required a light tank that could be used in amphibious operations. After trials with Christie amphibious tanks, Marmon Herrington produced a light, turretless tank with a .5-inch or 12.7 millimeter M2 machine gun and two 30 caliber or 7.62 millimeter M1919 machine guns.
What is it to deal with?
I don't know.
It didn't even have, anti-tank gun, but they're like, hey, we want a tank and we want machine guns all over it.
Dual M1919s on this thing.
And we want it to float.
Want it to float. Yeah, that was the other requirement.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
This was the first light tank to meet U.S. Marine Corps standards when it was designed with a crew of two consisting of the driver and a gunner and protected by up to half-inch, 12.7 millimeter of armor. It was named the Combat Light Tank 3, or the CTL-3. All three machine guns were mounted on ball mounts on the front hull.
The machine gun tanks.
Oh.
Well, okay, Russ, give us a little about this.
Nah, you're knocking my tankettes here. Be careful.
I apologize. I apologize. Don't make fun of Russ's. It's kind of like when people make fun of the M3 Lee. I'm like, hey.
Back off.
Yeah, leave my 10-foot tall and bulletproof alone. Russ, tell us a little bit about the service history.
Yeah, a small number were used by the U.S. Marine Corps, 1st Tank, and 1st Scout companies prior to the war. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Ordnance Committee determined that a few CTLS would be dispersed to the U.S. Army and employed in the Aleutian Islands campaign.
If you haven't, we've talked about this Aleutian campaign.
Yeah.
And I actually did a video over there in Carthage because the Sherman over there, went with that engineering group.
Sure.
They grabbed these light machine gun tanks and they're like, all right, here we go. Put these up there. That'll help.
Yeah.
But, we weren't geared up yet. And they had already invaded the Aleutian Islands. These tanks became, frontline tanks for us. I know. Don't make fun of them.
I know.
Okay. What about the foreign use?
Several hundred CTLS tanks were ordered by the Royal Netherlands East Indies Army. Of these, a small number were delivered to Java just in time to see combat in the Dutch East Indies campaign following the Japanese invasion in early 1942.
Okay, so the Dutch basically, or the Netherlands army said, okay, we know the Japanese are coming. So they sent them there and they had to fight there. Wow. 149
from this order were diverted to Australia where they were used for training. 600 CTLS were delivered to China under a Lease program after Pearl Harbor.
Basically, the Australians were just using this how to drive a tank, how to fix the tracks, get them familiarized.
Sure.
And
it's a small training tank, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, they didn't have anything else. So they're like, okay, let's send them over here.
Let's send them over there.
Okay. And then, of course, the Chinese had the old Renault,
Yeah, by that time, that's probably about all they had.
Yeah. So they were trying to get them as many tanks as they could. And China is such a huge country.
Oh, wow.
So they sent 600 over there.
600. But they did have an issue with supplying China with equipment quickly, and that proved a logistical nightmare. And having already been promised several hundred M2 A4s and M3 Stuarts, China rejected the CTLS. This left the U.S. Army with 240 tanks it had paid for but China didn't even want the hassle of being supplied with. So these 240 were transferred to emergency hotspots.
Okay. Okay.
I hate to laugh at that, but
Okay, so we're delivering these tanks for, the Army paid for them.
Yeah.
It's the Lend-Lease, and we need to talk about the Lend-Lease.
We really do.
Let's try to do that.
Yeah, that needs to be our next one.
Yeah. Well, we're going to try to talk about it a little bit tonight, I think.
Okay, all right.
So the Chinese got them, and they said, wait, we want the Shermans, and we want the Stuarts. You can keep the rest of these.
Yeah.
We don't want them. All right, well, let's talk about this MTLS-1G14. We were talking about World of Tanks again, being historical. I actually have this tank in my garage.
This particular tank?
Yeah, little two-shot thing. It goes.
I must admit, I don't think I have mine.
You know what?
Am I missing anything?
You're really not. It goes bang, bang, and then it dies.
The Marmon Herrington MTLS-1G14 is probably the most unusual tank produced by the Marmon Herrington Company before and during the Second World War. During the spring of 1941, 200 pieces were ordered by the Netherlands Purchase Commission for the Royal Netherlands East Indies Army in a desperate move to equip its army with armor. Armed with twin 37mm machine guns and up to 7 machine guns, the tank was one of a kind.
Okay, so it's got a double-barrel 37.
Oh, wow.
And they put on an extra 7
machine guns.
All right.
I'd like to see it all lit up at once, to be honest with you, just to...
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I would enjoy watching it fire.
Yeah.
Okay. This was for the Royal... I'm sorry. This still
I
makes me...
I know.
The Royal Netherlands East Army. Go ahead and... Did they have any other tanks?
Starting in 1936, the Royal Netherlands East Indies Army tried to re-equip its army as it had been neglected for nearly 20 years. They also had 4 Vickers tanks that were obtained, and satisfied with the results of testing, the Royal Netherlands East Army placed an order for 73 light tanks and 45 gun-armed command tanks. But due to the outbreak of the war, only 20 light tanks were delivered before the UK blocked all exports.
They were going to buy these Vickers, and they ordered, we're talking about 73 lights, and 45 of these command tanks, but they only get 20 because all of a sudden
the light tanks,
the UK's in the fight now,
sure,
and they're like, hey, we're gonna need every tank we got. That was the end of that. So tell us how we progressed in that.
Yeah, the Royal Netherlands East Indies Army turned to the United States and bought a total of 628 Marmon Herrington tanks instead. 200 of these were the MTLS-1G14 model. It was agreed that the complete order should be delivered before July 1st of 1942. Due to the company having no experience handling an order this big, they suffered from huge production delays, and only a small number of the MTLS-1G14s made it to the East Indies before Java was occupied by the Japanese and all transports were canceled.
The Brits, or the UK, says, sorry, we're going to need these tanks. We're going to need everything we've got.
No more exports,
No more exports. So they turn to the U.S. and they're like, okay, we're going to need a bunch of these. So they order this big, 628 of these tanks. Yeah. And then they're like, we're having trouble tooling up. Machines are breaking down, hiring more people, putting on 3 shifts.
Sure.
Doing all this, and then they get the call, Java got occupied.
Yeah.
No, we don't need them now.
Too little, too late. Sorry. The production order was taken over by the U.S. Army, and production of the 200 MTLS would be stopped by the U.S. after 125 pieces were built because of the Chinese refusing 240 CTLS.
So they bought basically 600 for the Chinese. So they get stuck. The Chinese are like, you know what? No. Yeah. No, just stop.
Yeah.
We want our M4s. We want our Stuarts. And they're like, wait a minute. We got 240 of these, and we still have 125 of these left over.
I know.
Well, I wonder if the company got the money up front.
Exactly. Yeah. Makes you wonder.
Well, they're making them, so I'm sure they got paid. It was too late for Java.
The MTLS tank was an enlarged version of the Combat Tank Light series, or the CTL, and which was designed by Marmon Herrington in the mid-1930s. Although the vertical volute spring suspension was reinforced compared to the CTL tanks, it was not really fit to support a weight of 22 U.S. tons, or 20,000 kilograms. The armor thickness varied between 1.5 inches, or 38 millimeters at the front, and a 1/2 inch, or 13 millimeters on top. The tracks were 18 inches wide, or 46 centimeters wide, and the Hercules gasoline engine produced 240 horsepower and resulted in a maximum speed of about 25 miles per hour, or 40 kilometers per hour.
The company's having troubles with production. They're making these light tanks, and they're like, no. You're going to have to up armor them and everything. And they're like, okay, we're going to up armor. But they're still using, basically, they're trying to make a medium tank.
Sure.
But it's still a light tank, in my opinion.
It is, yeah.
And the kicker of the whole thing is, here they are, having production problems. They're stumbling over this. And then they're like, we ain't got time to redesign.
No.
Everybody's screaming for these
Too
tanks.
late, yeah.
So they just threw on a bunch of armor, and it was made for what, 10 tons, and now it's 22 tons.
More than 22 tons, yeah.
On a little Hercules 240 horsepower.
Man. They're lucky to get 25 miles an hour out of it.
Poor 25 miles an hour with 7 machine guns. Anyway.
The twin-mounted 37 millimeter L.44 guns were designed by the American Armament Corporation. Both could be loaded with a clip of 5 shells. When firing fully automatically, they could fire 1/8 of a second after one another. A 30 caliber machine gun was mounted coaxially.
They got 5 rounds, 5-round clips for each 37. So basically 10 rounds.
10 rounds.
So this thing's going bomb, 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 and then they have to reload it.
And they reload each clip, yeah.
But they got their machine guns up there. In theory, I'm thinking that the engineer said, we got to put an anti-tank gun on it when it's got to have tons of machine guns. But then they said, no, you got to have armor on it now.
Another 30 caliber machine gun was ball mounted in the right front side wall of the turret, which faced forwards. 2 machine guns could be mounted on the back of the turret and serve as anti-aircraft guns. 2 more machine guns were mounted fixed in the hull, although most of the times only 1 was installed, while a 7th was located in a ball mount. They just had them everywhere, all the way around that thing.
I just keep thinking, you remember the old John Wayne movie, the Iron Wagon or the Iron Fortress? What was that called?
Oh, wow. I think I know what you're talking about, but I'm not.
It was John Wayne, and they were going to rob a gold shipment, and they had a stagecoach that was armor plated, and they had a bunch of guys, and there were 30-30s, the old Winchesters sticking out all over around
all over the place.
And they had a Gatling gun on top.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, I wonder if this company had anything to do with that. What was the name of that movie?
Oh, man.
If you know what movie we're talking about, please message
Give us
on
a holler,
on Facebook.
Yes.
I haven't seen that movie since my father passed. That was years and years ago.
The good old days.
Yeah. So, Russ, what was the problem with the tank? It's got 2 anti-tank guns on it. It's got a clip, 10 rounds, has all these machine guns. So what is the problem?
The MTLS had some severe design flaws, as the vehicle was essentially an enlarged version of a vehicle weighing less than 10 U.S. tons, now coming in at 22 U.S. tons. The increased weight had a severe impact on the suspension and overall structure of the vehicle, making it very unreliable. Furthermore, the increase of the number of crewmen from 2 to 4 was not well taken into account, and as a result, the complete crew had to enter through the top hatch on the top of the turret, which would be rather inconvenient in a combat situation.
So you got 4 guys in a metal box.
I cannot even imagine.
And there's only the hatch on the top. Hey, the tank's on fire.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, bugger, the tank's up. Getting 4 guys out. Okay, that's bad. That's a bad design flaw.
It is.
Even getting in it. Could you imagine me and you and 2 other guys sliding in?
I tell you what, we couldn't have been tankers. Not in those days.
Not in those days. But we love talking about them.
Yes, we do.
Okay, Russ. So we talked about the U.S. Army basically setting on 365 of these tanks and being sent off to emergency hotspots. Give us an example of like a hotspot.
Although the Netherlands was occupied by the Germans and the Dutch Indies were occupied by the Japanese, the Kingdom of the Netherlands still possessed colonies in Latin America. These were very important for the U.S. as they provided oil and most of the bauxite that was needed for the production of aluminum. For defense, troops from Puerto Rico were stationed at these Dutch colonies.
So they're getting these Puerto Rican troops, and that's where they're getting these tanks. They're sending them all over to these, like it said, the United States needed this, raw material.
Sure they did.
They're like, listen, we just need somebody to be able to guard this in case there is an invasion or something of these areas.
Yeah.
So they went to Puerto Rico and got their guys there and said, okay, now you're fighting for the Netherlands, and gave them these tanks. And, they're probably saying, wow, all right, great. This is great. Wait, there's only one hatch? Hey, why
I'm not getting in that thing. Are you crazy?
Do you guys use this? And they're like, yeah.
This is the top of the line.
Top of the line. Only driven once by a little old lady in Nantucket. No.
Furthermore, a tank battalion was founded in May of 1942, and it was based in Suriname.
I did not know that was a country. I failed so miserably in geography.
Yeah, I remember that in geography.
And I'm like, what? Is it a little island? And if we have listeners there, I want to apologize that I didn't know where your country was. Yeah. But they got this country, and they're like, okay, we're going to actually make a division or a battalion of these tanks. So they took a bunch of these tanks and trained up a battalion to, help in case there was an invasion. Okay, Russ, tell us the stats.
The dimensions of this tank, it was about 4.9 meters long by 2.64 meters wide and 2.81 meters high. Total weight, like we talked about, was 22 U.S. tons or 20,000 kilograms. It had a crew of 4. It was propelled by a Hercules water-cooled engine that kicked out about 240 horsepower. Had a maximum speed of about 40 kilometers an hour or 25 miles an hour.
We're talking about that speed again of 25 miles an hour. Now, that's on clear, flat road.
Oh, yeah, no obstructions.
Could you imagine driving around the islands or,
No.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'd slow it down considerably.
Mm-hmm.
And like we talked about, had the dual 37 millimeter L.44 AAC guns for their armament. And it also had up to 730 caliber or 7.62 millimeter Colt or Browning machine guns.
730 caliber machine guns.
Man.
Okay, here's the kicker.
Where are they going to put the extra ammo for 7 machine guns when you've got a crew of 4 that took up a lot of the...
That's my point.
Extra space.
Is why do you have 7 machine guns, but you only have 4 guys and one's driving?
I guess 1 machine gun in each hand for at least a couple.
Talking about John Wayne again.
There we go.
They were John Wayne in the machine guns, 2 in each hand.
It also had 13 to 38 millimeter or half-inch to 1.5-inch armor.
And that armor was the heavy point.
Heavy point, yeah.
And that's what gave it a design flaw. You know what? We've covered this, and there's probably some more we could cover on this, but I want to get on the Lease.
Yeah.
We have talked about that literally for a year now, and there are people out there like, what is this Lease?
Exactly.
And did it have any support? And the list of countries and the money that we spent, now you got to remember, these are $1945. So let's say, you got $50 million of $1945 just going off. Today in 2019 dollars, you're talking billions.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. Okay, Russ, start us off with this Lend-Lease Act.
The Lend-Lease Act of March 11th, 1941 was the principal means for providing U.S. military aid to foreign nations during World War II. The act authorized the president to transfer arms or any other defense materials for which Congress appropriated money to the government of any country whose defense the president deems vital to the defense of the United States.
Basically, Congress and Senate said, okay, we're going to allocate $50 million in 1941. That's still very, very tough on us. Because remember, we just came out of the Depression.
Yeah.
Our tank forces aren't up to speed yet.
Yeah.
We're just coming out with the Lease, and we're doing some other stuff. You know what? I hate to say it. That's before Pearl Harbor.
It is, yes.
So Roosevelt saying, we've got to help these people. They're getting slaughtered. The Soviet Union, they need well, my favorite, cans of Spam,
Well, sure.
and all this stuff. What kind of countries did we supply, and how much did we give them?
Well, kind of in alphabetical order here, we supplied the British Empire with about $31 million worth of materials.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, we provided Brazil with about $372,000 worth of materials. The Soviet Union, about almost $11 million worth of materials.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Well,
at the time.
You got to remember, we're having to ship, and you can't use the Pacific Ocean and the Aleutian Islands, so we're having a tough time. We're having to go over to the English side.
Lots of logistical issues,
And the British are doing stuff, but at least we're sending what we can to the Soviets, and about $11 million.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, that's nothing. In 1945.
In that time point, Mexico got about $39,000 worth of equipment. France, they received about $3 million worth of materials.
I know France, people are like, well, no, they were invaded. Well, they still had the French Free Army and stuff like that we were supplying, and with food and tanks and stuff like that. What else? Yeah,
Chile in South America received about $21,000 worth of equipment. The Chinese, they received about $1.5 million worth.
Again, getting stuff to them is really tough because they're right next to China or Japan that we're war with.
And you also had several of the other smaller South American countries, had several $1,000 worth of equipment sent to them. Looks like most of the countries in South America had at least a little bit provided. The Netherlands had about $251,000.
Well, $250,000.
Yeah, $250,000 of material.
And that was helping out with the East Indies and stuff like that, and feeding their troops and stuff like that. I know Saudi Arabia got some, and like we talked, we even gave stuff to Poland. They were pretty much invaded at that time. Liberia, of course. Ethiopia, we gave some. Yeah, the lowest one, I think, was Nicaragua. I think we gave them like $900.
$900 at that time. Makes you wonder what that was that they give them.
And I hate to say it.
Could have been anything.
It could be rifles.
Yeah.
People are like, well, $900 isn't going to buy a bunch of rifles. Well, you're wrong.
In that time period, it would.
Yeah.
It really would. But there's several smaller countries that we left out. Just, $1,000 here, $1,000 there that we provided equipment in some way to at that time period.
And I know we even gave some aid to Costa Rica. My daughter, of course, spent a year down there living, and that's awesome.
On the whole, the following conclusion can be drawn, that without these Western shipments under the Lend-Lease program, the Soviet Union not only would have not been able to win the Great Patriotic War, it would not have been able to even oppose the German invaders, since it could not itself produce sufficient quantities of arms and military equipment or adequate supplies of fuel and ammunition.
And food.
And Spam, The Soviet authorities were well aware of this dependency on the Lend-Lease program. Thus, Stalin told Harry Hopkins, which was FDR's emissary to Moscow in July 1941, that the USSR could not match Germany's might as an occupier of Europe and its resources.
So even Stalin at that time was like, hey, we need this.
Flat out admitted.
We can't compete, because they were knocking on the doors of Stalingrad. And for us not to be able to ship through the Aleutians or that side, and then you have all the German U-boats and stuff, but sending them $11 million worth of stuff.
Sure.
It helps.
It helps. It has to. Among the majority of Russian historians, opinion was established that the supply of military equipment and materials from the United States and Britain played a major role in the second half of the war and brought victory much closer. But before the situation of the turning point in the war, and before the victory of Stalingrad, the U.S. and UK supplies were limited. This was largely due to the difficult situation in the UK, which is exhausted by the blockade, and as well as the fact that the U.S. military production in 1941 and 42 was in the process of deployment. Such a point of view is stated, for example, in the collection of works of Russian historians, the Great Patriotic War of 1941 to 1945.
A lot of people are going to go, the Great, Patriotic War would have been won without this stuff. You have Stalin telling this guy, I need this.
Yes.
And I don't want to get into the whole debate. If you have a problem with what we've put out, go do your own research.
Sure.
If you say, oh no, the Soviets didn't need 11 million or the British didn't need 31 million or whatever, do the research.
But I'll guarantee you it helped. Even if they didn't think they needed it, it definitely
look
helped.
All the prior episodes that we did, and we talked about spam and everything like that, and that these guys would have starved to death in Stalingrad. Look at the daily rations that the troops were getting. Bread with sawdust, and stuff like that. It's just terrible.
It is.
It's just terrible. And at that point, we weren't in the fight, and the whole world was looking at us like, are you serious? You're going to sit there and drink your Coke and leave your mirrored sunglasses on and sit on the beach? So FDR, we were very isolationist. Sure. We didn't want to get in the fight. There was a ton of World War I veterans were like, this was the war to end all wars. We're going to stay this one out. He's like, FDR was like, we got to get in this fight. And they're like, no, we're not going to do it. And I hate to say this, what if Japan had never attacked it? What if they said,
very true.
Okay, well, all right, we'll back off. We wouldn't have gotten in that fight.
I don't think so.
And the only way we were getting in the fight, the only way we could help was with this Lend-Lease.
The Lend-Lease program.
And that's what we were doing at the time.
Yeah. I do want to make clear, when we talk about Lend-Lease, usually in our podcast, it's mainly going to pertain to armor and tanks. But Lend-Lease was on so much of a bigger scale besides just armor and tanks.
Absolutely.
It was everything. I mean, it consisted of anywhere probably from a uniform to like we talked about, food. Everything.
And you're not going to believe this. Training manuals. Actually going to the book company, paying for the, training manuals, editors to edit it.
Yeah.
And this is a training manual just for the M1 rifle. And we're shipping them over, but we got to ship over these training manuals too.
Yeah.
That's all cost.
Sure it is.
So that figures in. And you got to find somebody to translate it from English to, what is Spanish or French or whatever. What a great episode, And again, if we offended anybody, that wasn't our point. We were just saying, this is what we've researched. If you have a different opinion, please research it.
Please do.
Every perspective.
Yes.
I try not just to look at the United States view. I try to look at the British view. I try to look at the Soviet view. I try to look at the Japanese and the German view.
We want you guys' opinions. Give us your comments, everything. We want to hear from you folks.
Absolutely.
We really do.
And we just love the comments. We asked for comments on the drone. And you know what our number one comment was? Is this real?
Is this real?
And I'm like, the drone tanks?
It is.
They're like, yeah.
And it's been real for a few years now.
And they're like, well, are you saying the Russians actually used one in Syria? And I'm like, yes, it really did. Do your research.
If you don't, out there.
If you don't believe us, we had, seriously, on our Facebook, I answered at least 30 people saying, the video that you posted, the Black Knight and stuff like that, is this real or is this computer generated? No, it's real.
It's real. It's out there.
It's coming.
It's still in its early stages, and all the kinks are being worked out. But it's out there.
Yeah, it's like if you go out and look at like a brand new Mustang, the 2019, Super 5.0 Mustang, and know that it came from the Model T. That's where we're at, right? We're going to get to one of these super slick, controlled from Pittsburgh, Kansas, and be in combat somewhere in the world.
It's coming.
And it's going to be an armored tank. Let's go ahead and close. Just a great episode.
It was.
And again, a year. It's been great.
Incredible.
And
and Charlie and I have talked about before, did we ever think we would make it a year? Did we ever think we would make it a couple months?
Nope.
Nope. Not at any time.
But we've had so much support.
I know. You guys out there, the support is...
And
incredible.
And even the people, like I like to call them the haters, they'll say, you messed up there, or you said that wrong. And I'm like, I get names wrong every single episode.
We learn something new every episode.
Right. And then I'll have, people that are professionals come in and say, hey, you were kind of wrong on that. And we're like, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Now we know. And we usually put in retractions in the following episode. Well, I guess a happy anniversary. And
Happy anniversary.
This is Charlie.
And this is Russell. As always, happy tanking and have a great week.